All right, let's get right into it. When you're going through a divorce, one of the biggest headaches is figuring out what everything is actually worth. Everyone thinks about the house, that's the big one. But what about all the stuff inside the house? That's the question we're going to tackle right now.
So here's the question we hear all the time. You're getting a divorce appraisal done for your home. Can that same appraisal, that same person, also put a value on your furniture, your art, maybe some jewelry?
And the short answer is yes, absolutely. But, and this is a really big but, it is a totally different process. It's not as simple as tacking a few things onto the end of the real estate report. It's a whole different world, really.
To really get why, we've got to zoom out a bit. We need to look past just the house and understand what the phrase divorce appraisal actually covers.
See, most of us hear divorce appraisal and we immediately think of the house. But in reality, it's more of an umbrella term. It's supposed to cover the value of all the marital assets that need to be divided up. The house might be the most expensive piece of the pie, but it's still just one piece.
So let's just quickly run through what that usually includes. You've got the real estate, of course. Then you've got cars, boats, you name it. Any businesses, financial assets, stocks, bank accounts. And then there's the star of our show today, personal property.
Okay, so that term, personal property, it can sound a little vague, right? What are we really talking about here? Let's get specific. We are talking about all the tangible stuff you own. The furniture in your living room, any jewelry, the artwork on your walls, maybe some antiques you inherited, or even special collectibles. A good rule of thumb is if you can pick it up and move it, it's probably personal property. And the more valuable items are what usually need a formal appraisal.
And this right here, this is the main point. Figuring out the value of a house versus, say, a vintage guitar, it's like comparing apples and oranges. You just can't use the same person or the same methods for both. So let's put these two side by side so you can really see the difference. We're not talking about a minor distinction here. These are two completely separate professional fields. This chart really lays it all out. So for real estate, you need a licensed real estate appraiser. For personal property, you need a specialist, maybe someone who only does art or only does jewelry. The way they determine value is different too. A home's value is based on the local market, while a collectible's value might be based on recent auction prices. And finally, the report you get is totally different. For the house, it's a super formal, standardized document. For everything else, it's more like a detailed inventory with a value next to each item.
So you might be wondering, why all this fuss? Why does it have to be so precise? Can't we just agree on a number? Well, when a legal proceeding like a divorce is involved, the court really cares about getting it right.
And this quote pretty much says it all. The whole point of this process is something called equitable distribution. It's just a legal way of saying a fair split. And to make sure the split is actually fair, the court needs a solid neutral valuation for every single significant asset, not just the big-ticket items like the house.
Think of these appraised values as the roadmap for splitting everything up. They help lawyers and judges decide who keeps the expensive watch, who gets the antique desk, and, this is a big one, if one person gets more valuable stuff, they figure out how much cash that person might have to pay the other to make things fair and square. So when do you actually need to call in a personal property appraiser? Well, it usually comes down to two situations. First, there's a disagreement. You think the art collection is worth a fortune, your spouse thinks it belongs at a garage sale. Second, your lawyer tells you to. They need a neutral, defensible number that will hold up in mediation or even in front of a judge. Okay, so we've established that there are two separate experts and two separate processes. How on earth do you make all this work together smoothly during a divorce? Well, that's where the unified approach comes in. And this brings us right back to where we started. We can now answer that first question with a lot more detail. So yes, the big picture divorce appraisal process can, and often should, cover both your house and everything in it. And here is the single most important takeaway. The solution is not to find one person who can do it all. The real key is coordination. You need a real estate appraiser for the property, and you need a personal property specialist for the valuables. It's about having two distinct, qualified professionals working as a team to give the court the full picture. So let's leave you with a final thought. It's so easy to focus on the obvious things, like the house and the bank accounts, but this whole process forces you to look closer. So the question to ask yourself is, what valuable assets, and maybe even sentimental ones, might be getting completely overlooked in your divorce if you don't take this kind of comprehensive approach?